Okay, welcome to the SGA Presidential Forum. My name is Sophia, and I will be reading the questions aloud for your potential candidates for president and vice president. So let's get started with the first question. In case of any technical issues, the backup link for this will also be posted on our Instagram story and can be communicated in the chat, FYI. Okay, so we're going to start with Sage Beardsley and Thomas Reese, and you can just give an introduction about yourselves.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sage Beardsley. I'm the current Chief of Staff for Student Government. I'm a junior from Erie, Pennsylvania, studying International Studies and Biology, and my running mate, Tommy, and I will be running on the platform of trust, transparency, and tradition.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tommy Reese. I'm a current junior here at the University of Dayton. I am a mechanical engineering technology major with a minor in military science. I'm originally from Howard County, Maryland, recently moved to Rio Verde, Arizona, and I am currently the Speaker of the Senate in SGA.
Great, and now we'll have Jake Jagels and Bridget Afori.
Hello, my name is Jake Jagels. I'm a sophomore political science major with minors in history and sociology. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. In SGA, I currently serve as the Attorney General, the Chair of the Bylaws Committee, and the Academic Representative for the Social Sciences. Other than SGA, I'm a brother in Phi Alpha Delta Pre-Law Fraternity, a member of the College Republicans and UDSAP, and our platform is centered on three things: accountability, inclusion, and safety.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Ofori. I am a junior marketing major, pre-law and economics minor. I'm from Urbana, Ohio. That's all.
Okay, and then next we have Nelly Kalina and Annie Philbin.
Hi, everybody. I'm Natalie Capolino. I am a junior economics and MIS major and minor. I am from Saginaw, Michigan, and my running mate, Annie Philbin, and I are running on the platform of safety, sustainability, and well-being.
Inclusion and safety.
Hey everyone, my name is Annie Philbin. I'm currently a junior at Dayton and I'm studying International Business Management and Marketing. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Pi, a professional business fraternity, Women in Business, and I also serve on the Campus Unity Committee.
Okay, awesome. So now starting with Jake Jagels and Bridget, what is your campaign slogan and what meaning does it have behind it?
So this year for our campaign, our slogan is unity through community. Now, I got a little story about this slogan. So this year, UD has faced quite a bit. And one afternoon, I was sitting in the chapel right before we all came home. And this idea for our slogan, unity through community, came to mind. Now, this slogan is more than just some overused buzzword. It's about our university's Catholic Marianist principles, to include all people, to work together, and to promote the common good. We have a unique thing here at UD, a unique community, a community of diverse individuals, but together, in unity, we're all UD Flyers.
Good. Okay, thank you, Jake. And next we'll have Natalie and Annie speak on their slogan.
Hi again. Our slogan is Flying First Class. In general, flying first class means to be present in the highest class offered by an airline. Since we are all flyers, we chose this slogan in particular as a play on words to promote our vision of creating the best possible environment for all students on campus. Our top priority is the overall well-being of students. We want to work with the university to provide the best possible experience for all flyers, whether that is improving well-being, campus safety, or even sustainability.
Thank you, Natalie. And then next we'll have Sage and Tommy talk about their slogan.
Our slogan is Beardsley Reese 2020, a perfect vision for Dayton. With a play on words from the optometrist 2020, we chose this slogan to represent the all-encompassing idea that we are the perfect vision to lead and work with students at the University of Dayton. The platform that we briefly mentioned, trust, transparency, and tradition, can best be carried out by students with clear focus and a keen ear to what UD students want and need. We intend to listen to, advocate for, and work with the students each and every day towards the inclusive and holistic Dayton that they envision. Thank you.
Thank you, Sage. And then the next question is, how would you describe your leadership style? And now we will start with Natalie and Annie.
So my leadership style is very forward, but very inclusive. Being the leader of the Campus Unity Committee this year, I figured this out. I'm the type of person who will take charge of a situation and give it direction, but also I want as many voices represented as possible. I feel as though one person doesn't make a project great, but instead it is the voices and the input of every single person that is being representative, and all of those people coming together that makes something great. Annie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I typically favor a democratic leadership style while working in groups. I value making decisions based on each team member's inputs, and I want everyone's voices to be heard. I believe that this style of leadership encourages all members of a group to participate and work towards a common goal.
Great, thank you. Now, Tommy and Sage.
I would describe my leadership style as adaptable. I use this word specifically because I believe that my leadership style reads every room I walk into. I get to know who I'm working with and feed off their energy. I create and facilitate an environment that best accommodates the people I'm working with so we can collectively achieve accurate results efficiently. No one person is the same, I understand this. So no one style of leadership is the universal elixir, the cure-all. While my leadership style may resemble that of a chameleon, it is important to note that I have a foundational set of skills that I then build off of, which include compassion, empathy, and tenacity. And paired with Tommy's strategic, level-headedness, and rational ideology is the perfect collaboration. My distributive style of leading is an inclusive way to get everyone involved and work collaboratively towards a shared vision. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll touch on that. Just like Annie, I am also a democratic leader. I like the input of everyone around me contributing towards that goal. Like Sage said, I am strategic, level-headed, and rational. I like to have a plan going forward, but also be able to adapt and overcome those challenges.
Great, thank you, Tommy. Jake and Bridget.
My leadership style is communal. To me, leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about working as a team, working together to take all ideas into account and moving forward together as a group. Now, there are certainly times when the SGA president needs to take an active stand, something that Bridget and I are not at all afraid to do, but we generally believe that it is best to work alongside our peers to establish the best possible Dayton for all of you. Thanks.
I, as well, just as Giles, have a participative leadership style. I am active with my team members within the process of different activities. I like to build relationships and trust before and during the work we do to fully understand the people I'm working with so that during our time, we also enjoy it.
Thank you, Bridget. Now going with Sage and Tommy, can you give an example of a time when you had to solve a conflict when the odds were against you?
Yeah, I think everything in SGA does a good job of highlighting this. Specifically, this past year, we switched to a ranked choice voting system. It allows the elections process to be more equitable and open to everyone. Specifically, we made money allegations more fair and just for everyone, whether you're from a rich background, poor background, no matter your socioeconomic status. That was one example where we were challenged and made it more just and fair.
Great. Giles and Bridget?
Yeah, so this actually happened during my college experience. My first college internship, I was the youngest of the bunch and they were trying to weed out those who were inexperienced. I was given the job of making information sales sheets for over 100 types of concretes for a client I had no idea existed. I had no information about the different types of concretes or what the template was supposed to look like. So on my free day, I took the liberty of driving all the way down to Kentucky where the client was located and asked to speak with someone within the sales department and got a detailed list of what was expected and what I was supposed to do. After I returned my 100 sheets to my employer, she was surprised and didn't think I was going to go through with it and would quit the internship.
Thank you, Bridget. And now Natalie and Annie.
Yeah, definitely. This is just an example of something that Annie and I have kind of overcome. Actually, it happened this week. So I'm sure that you've all seen or heard about the Instagram post that was directed at me in regard to our campaign, and it was very dehumanizing, very hurtful. So I'm not really going to go into great detail about it, but it's been a very big challenge to go about with campaigning and business as usual, knowing that even one person feels that strongly against I or against Annie or against us as a collective team. With that being said, I have sort of used this as an experience, as a valuable life lesson. Just because one person speaks out against what I'm doing does not mean that I'm going to stop pursuing my goals. Annie and I have decided that we have worked far too hard and have not gotten this far to quit. We know that our platform is rooted in creating the best possible environment for flyers, and whether it's one person or 100 people who speak out against us, we are not going to stop advocating for that next level UD experience that we both dream of and plan for. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay, next question is, what platform promise sets your ticket apart from all the others? Jake and Bridget, you can start with this question.
The platform promise that sets our ticket apart from the others is an interesting question. Our platform is a platform for all students. It's a collection of ideas that represent what Bridget and I, as well as many of our fellow flyers who we talked to before we made our platform, feel most passionately about. The candidates in this election do not have vastly differing ideas. The platforms are all fairly similar. But what sets the Jagels Afori ticket apart is two things. First, one of our key platform issues is to establish an SGA code of ethics to stop waste and corruption. And second is our way of putting our platform into action if we were elected. We will not back down. We will not give up. We will fight tirelessly for students. We will work for an SGA that is inclusive and accountable, an SGA that represents you, not just the interest of SGA or a few of its members.
Great, thank you, Jake. And Natalie and Annie?
Yeah, so as Jake just touched on, all of the platforms are actually quite similar. However, what Annie and I believe sets us apart is the portion of our well-being tier that deals specifically with unity, diversity, and inclusion on campus. We have a combined 5 years serving on SGA's Campus Unity Committee, and this past year, I was actually the director of the committee. Our plans for next year include being a lot more involved with the Campus Unity Committee and their tough talks, as well as implementing a system of sorts that calls on flyers to hold other flyers accountable for their words and actions. As much as Annie and I would love to be in every corner of campus condemning those types of acts, that's just unrealistic for us to think that we can do that. So what we really need to do is call on other flyers. If you see something, you need to say something. We also intend to stop the stigma that is surrounded by ratting somebody out. It takes 15 seconds to speak out, but that short 15 seconds could have a very big impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. And now Sage and Tommy.
We believe that tradition sets us apart from the other tickets. At the end of the day, each of these tickets is very similar, running for safety, mental health, transparency, and overall a better quality of life at Dayton. However, with tradition, we bring to the table the idea of holding fast and tried and true traditions, telling the narratives of old traditions that are no longer acceptable. And then by doing so, we are able to create and originate new traditions to bring UD into the current times.
Thank you, Tommy. And now we're going to go with Natalie and Annie. What aspect of student life is in most need of improvement? Why do you say this, and how do you plan to address it?
So, sorry, we believe that well-being has the most needs for improvement. We want to improve mental health on campus, reform the Path Aviate system, and increase campus unity, among other things. We've already touched on campus unity, but we want to go a little bit more into detail about mental health. We will work towards allocating more resources towards mental health, whether that means working more closely with the counseling center to find a more efficient system that can accommodate more students, or if that means adding more money to the mental health budget to be able to offer more different seminars that they offer. We also want to increase the amount of group counseling sessions that the counseling center offers. And we do understand that a huge stressor for students is housing. We believe that the PATH system needs to be reformed, not eradicated. We want to work with the student body and the administrators to create a system that is more fair for students. We understand how stressful it can be to have an on-campus job, be enrolled in classes, and be actively involved in clubs while still earning the amount of PATH points that you need to get the housing that you desire. We want to reward students by giving them PATH points for being active members of the community. If elected, we plan to work with Aviate, the administration, and students to create a system that is more appealing to UD students and rewards involvement on campus instead of preventing them from being active in the community.
Thank you, Annie. Sage and Tommy?
So an aspect of student life that I find most need of improvement is accurate representation in student clubs and organizations. As we look within our own associations and clubs, I think it's a fair assumption to make that most are not reflective of the diverse numbers we have at Dayton. While Dayton is a PWI, primarily white institution, it is so very important to create space and opportunities for everyone to be represented at the table, and not only sitting at the table, but having a voice in the conversation. I believe there have been minuscule improvements on the campus to create the space to talk about what is and not getting done in regard to diversity, but a lot of these actions have been reactionary. The legislation that SGA saw this year was in response to bias incidences on campus. And while it is one thing to sign your name and practice diversity and inclusion in thought, it is another to see it carried out in numbers. Tommy and I plan to continue to support initiatives such as Community Means and Requires Everyone, and efforts within our own organization to stand in solidarity. But in addition, we are putting our feet on the ground and hitting it running within our own organization with the idea of immersive, proactive measures, meaning we want to sit down monthly with members of groups within the MEC community and to form a continuous and consistent relationship with these communities and partner through SGA to hold each other accountable for creating a more diverse and inclusive holistic environment at the University of Dayton. Thank you.
Thank you, Sage. And now Jake and Bridget.
The student life on campus is like no place. It is a special community. Like everything, it can always be improved. The aspect of campus life that Jake and I believe is most important is the overall health of our students. Just as Annie and Nat had mentioned, mental health is a big issue, and the counseling center is both underfunded and overwhelmed. But one thing that a lot of people do not talk about is our health center. So many students have been going to urgent care or even being misdiagnosed by the health center, but no one knows why. We need to have a conversation and sit down to understand what exactly can they do for us and what needs to go elsewhere, as well as with the counseling center. What steps should you take in order to take care of yourself before actually seeing a counselor? Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Next, how will you interface with UD administration, and how will you ensure that student concerns are prioritized by them? This goes to Tom and Sage.
Now more than ever will the relationship between students and administration be important. With the unexpected pandemic that is COVID-19 and the closure of the University of Dayton for the spring semester, come fall, there will be many changes both academically and socially. Unfortunately, no one knows what these will look like. With this being said, how I plan to interact with the UD administration is the same way I will interact with students in classes, my peers in passing, and the person swiping my card in the dining halls, with grace, tact, and compassion. Because here's the thing, for the most part, every party that I just mentioned is at UD because they love something about it. And you know who may love UD the most? Administration. Why? Because of the students like you and me. They want to see us succeed, and while it may be hard to agree with choices and decisions made by them initially, I hope in hindsight that they, just like I, am invested in your future, your well-being, and at the end of the day, simply you. I will continuously advocate for the students' choices and their voices, and that will always be my top priority. This year, I've had the good fortune to have worked firsthand with the Board of Trustees, President Spina, and the Alumni Association in regards to philanthropic work, and these opportunities have allowed me to establish a positive relationship built on trust and transparency, something we at Beardsley and Reese pride ourselves in. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sage. Now, Jake and Bridget.
For how we would interface with the UD administration is that we would first start by continuing the work done by former SGA presidents by meeting with UD administration on a regular basis. But Bridget and I would go above and beyond that. Students are the reason that this university exists, and it is imperative that we build relationships and get the face time with UD's administration that we as student government need so that we can work our hardest to fight for student concerns. We would ask the administration to hold office hours, such as coffee with Spina or lunch with Dean Schramm, so that way there is nothing that is missed and we can fight and advocate for students as much as possible.
Great, thank you, Jake. And now Natalie and Annie.
Simply put, we as students need to interact with respect. We cannot expect to enact change or enact reform if we cross a line. Students need to realize that the respect and professionalism will be reciprocated. Additionally, this level of respect will flourish into a fortified relationship. Both Annie and I have had the pleasure of an experience of interacting with UD administration. Personally, just this school year, I sat on the MLK committee where I assisted a group of administrators plan and execute the annual MLK breakfast. It turned out great. We always all got along really well, and a lot of really great relationships have come from that. Additionally, next school year, I will also sit on President Spina's inaugural University Inclusive Excellence Council, where I will be continuing to build great relationships with administrators in addition to improving campus unity. To summarize that, Annie and I feel as though respect and communication are the two most important priorities in any relationship, and that should be no different when we are interfacing with UD administration. Lastly, we are students, and we will be advocating for the students like us, and making sure that their concerns, our concerns, are heard loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And so now if your campaign had a theme song, what would it be and why? And we're going to start with Jake and Bridget.
This is an interesting question. And I would say that our campaign theme song would be "We Won't Back Down." Because it symbolizes Bridget and I's resolve to face down challenges Do I need to start again?
Sure, start again.
Thank you. Some technical difficulties. This is an interesting question, but if our campaign had a theme song, our song would be "We Won't Back Down" by Tom Petty, because it symbolizes Bridget and I's resolve to face challenges head on and to fight for our fellow Flyers regardless of the consequences.
Okay, thank you, Jake. And now we'll have Natalie and Annie.
Annie and I chose "Here Comes the Sun" by the Beatles for our campaign song because we truly feel that under our leadership, we will actively be working towards making the University of Dayton a brighter, more positive, more inclusive place for all. Overall, we would like to highlight our commitment to making UD the best possible place for Flyers. In addition to that, the University of Dayton, as well as everywhere else around the world right now, in light of COVID-19, is going through a big storm. So our presidency and our campaign wants to kind of be the sun after the storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Now Sage and Tommy.
Just like the girls before us, we also chose a song by the Beatles, "Come Together." We think that the title of this song perfectly sums up our 3 T's: trust, transparency, and tradition. And better unifying the Dayton student body is something that we are very focused on. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so what is your stance on safety at UD and where do you see a need for improvements? We will start with Natalie and Annie.
The transparency between UD students and public safety needs to be improved. Not every student, but some students do not respect public safety. This in itself tarnishes our relationship with them straight away. We must promote the idea that the UD police officers are only there to protect us and help us. Additionally, we must call on public safety to be as transparent with us as they are allowed to be. Relationships are not only one-sided, and we understand that. Essentially, we will call on both parties to put whatever occurred in the past behind them and start fresh this fall with a mutual respect and appreciation for one another. Upon returning to campus come fall, Annie and I already have plans to meet with Melinda Worthman, who is a public safety administrator. At this meeting, we plan to discuss increasing transparency as well as the prevention of sexual harassment and sexual assault on campus. We not only want to work with UD Police and Public Safety to transform the blue light system by turning them into help lights and eventually increasing their presence, but we also want to end the stigma around of reporting sexual assault. We understand that we are a small community and word travels fast, and there's a big fear of backlash for students. However, again, like we mentioned earlier, if you see something, say something. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. And now Sage and Tommy.
One thing SGA did really well this year was they went on a lighting tour, which went around the student neighborhoods and focused on areas that were considered too dark and needed more lights put in. I think next year we look forward to expanding on that lighting tour, as well as looking into options for the blue button system. I know we've had talks with the previous chief of police and hopefully with this new chief of police to expand those as help buttons rather than just emergency buttons. Going along with the new chief of police, we are really looking forward to repairing connections, building connections, and building trust with him, on creating an understanding of why the police are making certain actions, as well as what some of the logic and why the chief and his police officers are so important to the UD community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Now Jake and Bridget.
The Giles campaign stance on safety on campus is the campus is not as safe as it should be. The University of Dayton is a place for everyone. And when people don't feel safe, it's not. Bridget and I will work for a safer campus by working with UD administration and public safety to put in more blue lights across the student neighborhoods and main campus, to increase street lighting, as Tommy mentioned, and improving relations between students and public safety by holding more path-eligible events so that students and the police are able to talk with one another, have a dialogue, and hopefully finally understand each other.
Great, thank you, Jake. Okay, and now we're going to go to some audience questions. Since this will not be seen on your screen, just let me know if you need me to repeat it. The first one is, so we will start with Sage and Tommy. How will you ensure that everyone feels the merriness spirit of inclusivity on campus?
I could start with this one. So one thing that makes Dayton so incredibly special is our spirit, whether it's to interact with students, interacting within clubs and organizations, our sports teams, or our Catholic merriness values. One way in which Tommy and I plan to encourage inclusivity is to create more collaborative events. One idea that Tommy and I have is called SGA Collab. And this is where SGA itself would pair with organizations that maybe they previously have not been normally paired with, to broaden our scope and our reach, and to include more students on campus that may not feel as if they are home yet, and hopefully they do after these events.
Thank you, Sage. Tommy, do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to give a shout out to Morgan Cox, the new director of merriness involvement, or whatever her title is. I'm forgetting the name. She's going to do a great job next year.
Thank you. Jake and Bridget.
On merriness inclusivity, well, first I would also like to give a shout out to Director Morgan Cox, but Bridget and I would like to increase the inclusion and through the Marianist values and principles that are fundamental to the University of Dayton by hosting more path-eligible events. Path-eligible events are one of the best ways to get students to come to something and to care about the event. We want these events to have people speaking from a diverse background to allow students to get to interact with people who they might not otherwise normally interact with, allowing for diversity of ideas, opinions, and backgrounds to be shared and spread. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so a part of that, we want to help the Marianist student community market their events that they have on a daily basis, because I know Morgan Cox, our Marianist involvement electee, she is actually a part of the Marianist student community, so ensuring that not only students will feel comfortable in that position, but also know that it is a comfortable space to go learn more about the Marianist values and to also meet our Marianist brothers.
Great. And Natalie and Annie?
Yes, thank you. So Annie and I, as I've previously mentioned, we've both been on the Campus Unity Committee for quite some time now. And we've noticed that sometimes we fall short in representing people who are not specifically like us. In particular, we would like to have a greater representation and a greater voice for those of different racial backgrounds, even those with disabilities and those who have different religious backgrounds than we do. Since the University of Dayton is a primarily white institute, as Sage mentioned earlier, a lot of students do not know any real holidays besides the ones that students typically celebrate that attend the university. We would like to increase these other holidays and celebrating these other holidays as well by just making more students more aware and making other students feel more included and welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to highlight what Natalie was saying about making sure that every student feels included and valued. Through both of our experience on the Campus Unity Committee, we've really been able to reach out and work with a lot of students and figure out the events that they want to highlight. So if elected, we would work together to really highlight certain underrepresented groups on campus and underrepresented holidays. Thank you.
Great, thank you. This next question, we will start with Jake and Bridget, and it is, how will you handle situations in which the students want one solution and the administration wants a different one?
Now, when an issue like this occurs, it's always a difficult situation. But what Bridget and I will do is that we will fight for what students want. Now, we don't always get what we want. That's a fundamental part of life. But we need to stand up for what students want as much as we possibly can so that UD and students can come together at a compromise. Compromise is always the best way forward when there's two sides that are diametrically opposed to one another. And that is something that Bridget and I will do is through increasing communication with UD administration and making SGA and UD more transparent to the student body.
Thank you, Jake. Bridget?
Yeah, so along with that, before we reach that compromise, we will ensure that we talk with both administration and the students to ensure that they are happy with the agreement that we plan to make, or come to a different agreement, or just make sure everyone understands the reasons why we've made the decision we have.
Great, thank you. And now Natalie and Annie.
Yeah, echoing what Jake said, communication and transparency are probably two of the most important things in any relationship. And I stated this earlier, even with public safety and students' relationships. The same thing needs to be done with the relationship between any UD administrator and any UD student. You need that level of respect there, and you need that level of communication and transparency. You're not going to get anywhere if you have two sides constantly butting heads and constantly pulling in opposite directions. You do need that compromise, and that can only be reached through open dialogue, open communication. So maybe by hosting more events, more forums with UD administration, we can reach that middle ground that we all want. Thank you.
Annie?
Yeah, so we really want to increase the transparency between the administration and the students. And at the end of the day, we will be advocating for what the students want. and we will work tirelessly to get the students the outcome that they want. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Sage and Tommy.
So one of our platforms is transparency, followed by trust and tradition. And those are all come into play in terms of having a good rapport with the administration as well as with our students. Like Giles said, it is an incredibly tough position to be in because yes, we are students and we are advocate for our students, but it's also our responsibility to remain respectful and in a good rapport with the administration. With that being said, however, it's incredibly important that our students' voices are being heard. And with that comes transparency and trust. And with trust, building that connection with our students and hearing exactly what they want, and then being the liaison between students and administration, that when we sit down with administration, we have complete transparency. And what I mean by this is, I think a lot of times the university sometimes leaves out details. And while there are certain things that cannot be shared, we all understand that some details are really pertinent and they're overlooked. And I think there's more understanding when the full picture is involved. And so with transparency and trust mixing together, I think that's the best way to kind of hear what students want, give them as much as they can while still being respectful and honoring what administration has in plan, because sometimes they see the bigger picture before we do.
Tommy?
Yep, and our third T is tradition, obviously. SGA in the past has had a pretty good rapport of being the facilitator between the two, but there's always room for improvement. We aim to better ourselves, better the organization in advocating on behalf of the students and making decisions more transparent and well-known to the students.
Great, thank you, Tommy. So this next question will start with Nelly and Annie. Many students I know feel that there is a growing divide between campus safety and student community. What would your admin do to address this?
I'm sorry, can you re-say the question? I couldn't hear you. My audio was going out.
Sorry. Many students I know feel that there is a divide growing between campus safety and the student community. What would your admin do to address this?
Thank you. So again, I want to bring up the transparency. We need to call on public safety the same way that they call on us. When we as students do something that is completely unacceptable, they let us know. When public safety does not explain fully their reasoning behind some things, we need to let them know that we would like to know and we would like to very much be a part of that conversation. I think just continuing to ask those questions in a respectful way is what's going to make us, grow leaps and bounds in that relationship with them. Again, we can't demand information. We can't do things disrespectfully and expect to get somewhere. That's just not how it works, because at the end of the day, although we do deserve to know, we are students and they are administrators. We should treat them with respect and expect to be treated with respect in the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Yeah, so we also really want to focus on the idea that public safety is there to keep our campus safe. And we really want to stress to the students the importance it is to treat the members of the UD police with respect. And we also, again, like Natalie was saying, really want to increase the transparency so we understand the reasoning behind certain decisions that are being made and when they're being made.
Great, thank you. Sage and Tommy?
Yeah, going back to our 3 Ts, obviously the students have to have that trust in the chief of police as well as his other officers to keep us safe. Ultimately, that is their job. They're on campus to protect us, keep us safe, and keep us away from evil. We have met with Chief Kidd very briefly in the past. We look forward to meeting with him again and explaining how SGA wants the police to be transparent and how we want to have student voices on any decisions or at least some student input, so that way he can make sure that he is considering all the different perspectives and understands where these students are coming from. Sage?
Yeah, so going off that, I think Tommy did a great job of summarizing what our platform stands for and how this can best answer the question that had been asked. With this being said, we as student leaders, we lead by example. We should hold ourselves accountable and put our best foot forward. And I know sometimes while still remaining a student and having fun and whatnot, it's hard to do that. We can be open and honest here with that. Now, going off that, what we do today and the actions that we do on campus have way more of an impact than I think a lot of us realize. And when we hold our students accountable, our peers, ourselves accountable, it makes the UD Chief of Police and our campus safety department have much easier of a time. And it builds that rapport and that trust and respect. And with that great foundation of all those things combined, can have a really successful school year.
Great, thank you, Sage. And now Jake and Bridget.
I agree with this question that there does appear to be a widening divide in between students and public safety. There doesn't have to be. Bridget and I's slogan is unity through community. Now, community isn't just students, it's faculty, administrators, and it's public safety. Community takes all of us. It requires everyone. We all need to respect each other. Students need to respect public safety, but public safety also needs to respect students and students' wants and needs. The Giles administration will try and bridge this gap between public safety and the student body by working to find compromises that are okay with everyone. Compromises won't necessarily be perfect. UD might not like it 100% and students might not like it 100%, but together we can find a way to find a middle ground, to find a solution, and to find unity through community.
Thank you, Jake. Bridget?
So Jake and I have talked to both Chief Kidd as well as an officer from the Dayton Police Department, and they both had the same answer. They're not here to try and ruin your fun, quote unquote. They want to make sure you're safe and to keep you safe. The Dayton police officer had said he was an alumni of the university as well as his daughter, and they were here when our basketball team was in the Elite Eight. And yes, things happened, but they knew after that how to keep it to an extent where people stayed safe. And they knew, like, obviously Low Street is a big thing. They knew how to have fun while keeping each other safe, keeping each other accountable after big events like that happened.
Great, thank you, Jake and Bridget. Okay, this question's going to Sage and Tommy. What are your plans for ensuring that international students feel like welcome members of the UD community?
As an international studies major, I have a really unique perspective. A lot of my classes are shared with like-minded people who are very open to the idea of interculture, interfaith, and interlanguage. And with this being said, I've been privy to meet a lot of exceptional people on campus. Now, I know that's not a normal situation, and I know that most students aren't in the same boat as I. But with that being said, with my experience with interacting with students of different cultures, and especially the international community, I have some really great ideas and insights for this. Tommy and I had a meeting with Dr. Graham just a few days ago, and we discussed how things look on our end and what the international community, the MEC community, the AAA, all of these organizations, what they want to see from SGA, what they want to see from student leaders. Because we've talked about some divides on campus, whether it's been public safety, whether it's been path points, all this sort of thing. We, as student government representatives, we are supposed to be advocating for the students, and students come first, and obviously all of these issues involve students. But with that, I think that one way in which we can maintain and strengthen communication, inclusion with international students is taking that first step. It's incredibly intimidating to walk into a room in which you know that you look different. You know that when certain conversations are being had, people are going to look at you. That's not okay. And while that may be the way of how things work, it shouldn't be. And making those conversations open and honest with people. And maybe if you see someone or a group of people that may look different than you, sound different than you, speak a different language than you, to not be intimidated by that. And that starts with us. That starts with us taking the first steps towards creating a more open and friendly environment. There's nothing to be scared of. There's nothing to be intimidated by if someone looks different than you or sounds different. And that starts with attending events maybe outside of your comfort zone, or going to Culture Fest. They have great food. There's lots of dancing, awesome music, highly recommend it. But if you're not exposed to that early on, then it's going to be extremely daunting. So take a friend, take 10 friends, make it a thing. And I think that's the best way in which we can do that.
Thank you, Sage. Tommy?
Going off that, just one other note I had from our meeting with Dr. Graham was that SGA needs to be more proactive instead of reactionary. Instead of just passing some legislation whenever there's a hate incident or something happens, we should be prioritizing inviting them in or going and meeting with MEC or LEAD and trying to understand where our perspectives are coming from. Make it a consistent like weekly or bi-weekly invitation, whether it's grabbing coffee, stopping by the MEC lounge, just going and putting a face to a name. That way they know they're welcome. And everyone knows that SGA is there for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jake and Bridget?
International students are a very important part of the UD community. What Bridget and I would do to try and promote inclusion and a community with the international students and domestic students would be to hold more SGA events, specifically some for international students, to engage in dialogue with other students from the UD community. So that way people, when they talk to each other, can find that people from all over the world aren't very different. Our UD community is made up of kids from Dayton, Ohio, all over the country and abroad. And Bridget and I will work to promote inclusion of all kinds of students. We want to break down barriers and allow everyone to find unity through community.
Thank you, Jake. Bridget?
So as most people know, our international students have orientation at a different time. They live at an entirely different part of campus, like they're excluded from the main campus. We need to change that. We should, not only we can let them have their initial orientation, but then have another orientation for them to get the chance to meet people before they go into their classes, as well as, I don't know if many of you guys have seen it, but when you're filling out your housing application, there's a part that says, would you like to room with an international student, which gives them the opportunity to, when they come to campus, they're not automatically going to Irving Commons or that area off of campus. There would already be an open space for them on our main campus.
Thank you, Bridget. Now, Nelly and Annie.
Yes, I would just like to kind of echo what the other two candidates already said, as well as say that SGA resolutions are great. They condemn an act, and that's wonderful. However, I think that we need to go beyond condemning it, and we need to almost prevent the problems before there is a problem. And we can do this by having more events that are more inclusive for people. And like Bridget said before, we need to be more welcoming right off the bat. We need to have these events where people get the opportunity to meet people. And don't be afraid to room with an international student. What better way to make a friend and incorporate community than to meet someone right off the bat? Thank you.
Annie?
Yeah, going off what Natalie was saying, we really want to stress the importance of being welcoming right off the bat and educating students so they are aware of how intimidating it can be to come to college in a different country. So we just want to host like different events and really like get the ball rolling and make sure that everyone feels included.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to start with Jake and Bridget, and this comes from our great Sam Enderby. If you could describe UD in one word that is not community, what would it be?
I would say friendship. Now, friendship is kind of a synonym for community, but UD is a place where everyone really can feel welcome. I've always felt welcome at the University of Dayton, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I chose to attend the University of Dayton, because everyone here is a friend.
Thank you, Jake. Bridget?
I would definitely go with diversity. Not one person on our campus is the same. We all come from different cities, different backgrounds, different cultures and everything like that. So definitely diversity.
Thank you. Natalie and Annie?
Yeah, I would say that it's enriching, if anything. Everybody can have their own thing to do there. And it's amazing when so many people can go their own way, but then also congregate in the middle for something greater. And I know that we're not allowed to use the word community, but I'm going to act like it doesn't count because I said enriching as my word. So it's great that people can have their own things, but can also be a part of one community as well. So that's why I find that it's so enriching. Thank you.
The first word that came to mind for me was home. I consider the University of Dayton my home away from home. And if elected to be your SGA Vice President, I would do everything in my power to make sure that the University of Dayton can be seen as a home for everyone.
Great, thank you. Sage and Tommy?
So the first word that came to mind was electric. And why I'm choosing this word, it might be a little out of the box, is because there's so many different energies on campus. There's people that are producing and creating this wonderful atmosphere that makes UD home and enriching and are part of our community. All these words that were said, I think electric is a perfect way to just capture the light and the essence of everyone, no matter who you are, where you're from, and what you look like. Thanks.
I'm gonna go a little more sentimental and say family. It's a little more personal and lovable than community. I feel like all the friends I've made there, they're truly part of my family. I look forward to seeing them when we go back in the fall. And I feel like even when I'm at home, I'm spending more time on my laptop or on my phone talking with them than with my actual family.
Thank you, Tommy. So now we will start with Natalie and Annie. How will candidates improve the path system and prevent waiting times of up to 2 hours, which could be used for homework or other activities?
Definitely. Thank you so much for the question. As Annie and I talked about a little earlier, we definitely are here to reform the path system, not eradicate it. So what we want to do is we still want to have some type of path points there. However, we also want to have a system that allows for students to maybe receive a path point or two for different clubs or organizations they're in, or if they have an on-campus job, or if they volunteer with an on-campus organization, or just on campus in general. So that way they will be more accessible to students. As far as the wait times and the lines go, I know that there have been talks about having RSVPs on Google Invites for that, where if students want to attend an event, the first, for example, 50 RSVP to it, and then only those people can attend, and then that would take care of having a wait time. You would not be waiting in line if you don't have an RSVP. So you would be guaranteed a spot at the place. Thank you.
Annie?
Yeah, we understand that path points are one of students' biggest concerns because housing is what makes the University of Dayton so great. As Natalie was saying, we would want to implement some sort of RSVP system. So this would totally eliminate the hours that you would spend waiting in line. So you'd only have to spend the time at the actual event. And we also want to reward students for being active. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard from other students is that they don't have time to go to path point events because they have an on-campus job or they're very active in a club, and when they're going to those meetings, that's during like path point times. So we want to reward students for being active by giving them path points for being active members of the community.
Great, thank you. Sage and Tommy?
Yeah, I'll kick it off here. I know we have done a lot in the past with the path system and everyone from housing. They've been super grateful for any comments we have, and they've been super welcoming to new ideas. Just like the previous ticket, we also had the idea of the RSVP system, but then also having more online path points. That way students are able to do it when they are sitting at their house. They don't have to get up, walk through the snow. They don't have to go wait in lines. They can do it in their own free time. And it makes it more equal for everyone.
Sage?
I think Tommy did a wonderful job. Thanks.
Okay, great. And now Jake and Bridget.
The path system here at UD is something that isn't going to be abolished. Even if we all wanted it, UD is not going to get rid of it, but it's something that we can reform. Now, like the other candidates have said, an RSVP type system was a wonderful idea. UD started it, and that's something we would definitely push for expanding. And something that I would personally like to look into would be baseline path points for holding an on-campus job or being very active in club participation.
Bridget?
So both candidates did an amazing job of what the path reform would look like, as well as my running mate. Although there is one caveat to it, SGA does not have the jurisdiction for path reform. Since it is under housing, actually the Residential Housing Association, also known as RHA, takes all housing concerns, including with Aviate. And what SGA would be doing is filtering those over to RHA, as well as working with RHA because they have a liaison to ensure that path reform is made.
Great, thank you. Natalie, did you already answer that one? Sorry.
Yes, I did.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so now we will start with Sage and Tommy again. Tradition was brought up in this forum. The connotation of tradition on campus is typically in regards to calling the student neighborhood the ghetto. And that what is meant by tradition in the forum? If not, what traditions specifically are referenced?
So when Tommy and I talk about tradition, one part of our platform within tradition is eradicating some of the traditions and creating new ones, originating a new narrative. When we talk about eradicating traditions, yes, we are directly referencing the connotation behind calling the student neighborhood the ghetto. We understand that this impacts students differently, and that not all students may understand that their word has an impact, a negative impact, might I add, on other students within our campus. This talk is absolutely unacceptable. I, along with Tommy, will not stand for this, and we hope that people hold other students accountable when they reference this. Now, part of this eradication would definitely be implementing a new fun name, something a little more fun than the student neighborhood, I'd like to add. But with this also is explaining the narrative behind the term the ghetto. I think a lot of students just simply don't understand, because anytime I've corrected someone or called someone out on this, that I might get the backlash. Why? Like, my parents said this, X, Y, and Z, this is a tradition, this is what Dayton is. That's not what Dayton is. Dayton is a wonderful community in which is striving to be more inclusive and more diverse and a better place. And that kind of language doesn't have a place at Dayton. And with that, we just really think that we have the capability to change this. It just starts with one person and that chain reaction.
Tommy?
Going along with that, we also have ideas for new traditions and building up and focusing on the current traditions we have, whether it be the spring concert that we do in collaboration with CAB, getting better attendance at those, getting bigger artists, getting just overall more hype towards these traditions that we have put in place, and just focus on those and making them even better than they are.
Okay, Jake and Bridget?
The question of tradition is a bit of a difficult one. Now, for me personally, tradition is the kind of things that make UD unique and what makes UD the place it is. Tradition is sitting on a porch with your friends. Tradition is St. Patrick's Day on Lowe's, and so many more things. Now, there are certainly some negative traditions, like the alternative name for the student neighborhood. These are traditions that need to be stopped immediately. Bridget and I's main platform issue is inclusion. We want to have a community that is inclusive of all people from all backgrounds, socioeconomic, religious statuses, so that way we can come together and enjoy our traditions in a way that respects everyone and keeps in mind the dignity of each and every person.
Bridget?
So I agree with Jake that traditions are things such as St. Patrick's Day, as well as Tommy said, the end of the year concert, which would be in replace of the tradition of the Woodland Street Fair. What's not a tradition is the term ghetto being used in the student neighborhood. That a tradition is something that is accepted by everyone and that has been passed down through generations. The term the ghetto was slang that was negatively used, that was passed down through family members of the legacies of the University of Dayton. I wouldn't say it's a tradition.
Great, Bridget. Annie and or Nelly and Annie.
I can start on this one. So Natalie and I want to focus on highlighting the positive traditions of Dayton, which, like Jake was saying, sitting on a porch with your friends, it's going to Mary Crest to eat a monster cookie. And really, we just want to like promote the tradition of community on campus. We also want to end the negative traditions, as everyone was saying, the term ghetto to describe the student neighborhood. We think we can prevent this by educating our students and by educating our alumni. A big problem is the alumni see it as a tradition to refer to it as the ghetto, and they do not realize that this term can be harmful. And so we really want to promote the idea and really create awareness that this is not okay. And we want to focus on highlighting the good traditions of Dayton and really ending the negative ones.
Natalie?
Yes, I completely agree with everything that Annie said. She did a great job.
Okay, so this one will start with Jake and Bridget. Several of the campaign points brought up by all candidates reference ideas that SGA has already had or projects already in place. What are your original ideas?
So we've got quite a few original ideas. Now, we think it's important to keep in place the things that have worked well from the past. There's also things that need to be gotten rid of. Now, one innovative idea that Bridget and I have on our platform that no other candidate has on theirs is the establishment of an SGA code of ethics. This would outline the specific things that SGA members can and cannot do, and would allow for clear guidelines and guidance for people to understand how to properly represent and advocate for their constituents. Bridget?
I would just like to add for our different committees that we have in SGA, specifically the Campus Unity Committee, seeing that our slogan is Unity through Community, we would like to have that expanded, just to have a diverse set of people that are held on that committee. So someone from the Reich Center, someone from AAA, someone from the Met community, in order to have the unity of everyone's voice heard within SGA.
Great, thank you. Natalie and Annie?
Yeah, so Annie and I actually have sustainability as our third tier of one of our platforms. And what we would like to highlight on this is we want to incentivize students in the student neighborhood to get higher energy GPAs. This might mean thinking twice before you leave a light on when you go to bed, or thinking twice before you leave your television running all night, and different things like that. And we think that if we really highlight that energy GPA being incentivized, that's what kind of sets us apart. And that's one of our newer ideas that we have that we're proud of. Thank you.
Yeah, going off what Natalie said, we really want to promote sustainability on campus and reward students for doing good.
Sage and Tommy?
So as I previously mentioned on one of the earlier questions, Tom and I thought of this idea of doing SGA Collaborations. And what this means is that we would be collaborating with student organizations, students themselves, and faculty and staff across the campus that may not have had the chance or the same reach that other organizations have had. And what we plan on doing with this is we plan on reaching parts of campus that may not have the same visibility and the same opportunities as other organizations on campus, whether that be because they're brand new or they may not have as many active members, but really just getting their names out there and diversifying what our normal looks like. I think a lot of times SGA interacts with the same kind of roundabout group of people. And I think with this new collaboration system, we'll be able to introduce more and newer groups to the larger portion of campus. Thank you.
Yeah, one specific example of that would be meeting with Middle Ground. I know there's been a lot of talk about the relationship between these students and the administration. We've met with Middle Ground. We actually have their endorsement. We want to work together and have those open discussions, working with Middle Ground as the host to bring in both parties and make sure that everyone understands each other's perspectives. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next question, we will start with Natalie and Annie. Do you guys have any thoughts on restructuring SGA?
I can start. Sorry, okay. So what we really want to do with SGA is kind of end the stigma about it. I know a lot of people, especially with like the recent Flyer News article written about SGA, really see it as a corrupt organization. So for restructuring, we would want to rebrand the organization as a whole and kind of let the students know that we're here to allocate for them.
Yes, going off of what Annie said and adding a little bit more, what we want to do is we really want to make the committees more involved and more aware of what SGA as a whole is doing. We want them more involved with the Sunday Senate meetings and all of that stuff. Also, we want campus unity to be a much bigger part of the university. We believe that it is a very underutilized resource that people don't really know too much about. They just know that it exists, and we really think that it could help us in promoting unity across campus in a more effective way. Thank you.
Sage and Tommy?
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this. I think the biggest thing that we see with SGA is transparency. I know a piece of legislation came up called the Transparency Bill that focused on this, recording how students vote, just being or having our meetings live streamed, being more open to the student body who we are representing. I think SGA overall does a great job of the way they're set up and structured, but that's just one little thing we want to focus on is better transparency to our students and to the administration. Thank you.
And one other thing that we can elaborate on in terms of SGA is getting more people involved with it. We have different members of our Senate that represent all 4 grades within the University of Dayton. And going off that, we want to get more people involved. We want committees that reach a farther our audience. We want more people to really know what SGA is about. I think I've had a lot of conversations in which someone will be like, oh, I really like this about campus, or I love this event, and have no idea that SGA was the person who originated that and or had a great deal of influence within that event. So just making SGA a more prominent and respected organization and association on campus. Thanks.
Jake and Bridget?
A reorganization of SGA is something that the student government desperately needs. Now, the first thing that I would like to do in the Giles administration would be to add some more executive posts, appointed positions, to allow for a more efficient administration, distributing responsibility, so that way people can actually get all the things they need to done. The second thing is something I've been working on for quite a while, and this is something that we would really like to push forward in the Giles administration, which would be to create a judicial system for SGA. An independent court system that would keep the SGA members accountable to the student body, to the rules of SGA and the University of Dayton. Our third thing for the reorganization of SGA is that we would like to strengthen the SGA committees, have a stronger level of student engagement in committees, more kids on the committees, and have the committees host more events. That way, the messages that SGA is trying to share and the messages the students are trying to share with us can be better communicated and represented. Thank you.
Yeah, so one thing is our Senate is made up of 16, well, there's 20, but 16 different students from 4 from each class, and it does not represent the student body at all. We would like to ensure or mostly encourage more students to apply for those positions, as well as when voting occurs, they know that during Senates, they get to sit with administration, talk to them, answer questions they present to us, but knowing that the questions that are presented to them don't get the voice of the student body out correctly, because our Senate is not directly representative of our student body.
Nelly and Annie?
We answered this one.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. Sage and Tommy, how will you encourage students to get engaged with the city of Dayton and break outside the bubble of UD?
This is a great question. I think another thing that makes Dayton, the University of Dayton, so special is the location of where we are. We have some great places downtown that are run by fellow alumni that support flyers like it's no one's business. And I think it's incredibly important that we support them as well. With this being said, the accessibility to downtown is sometimes a hard thing to figure out, but luckily over the last year or so, we've had the flyer. And what this is a bus that takes students as well as the public downtown and back to campus. One thing that we would like, Tommy and I would like to elaborate on though, is some reform and restructure of the system in which the flyer runs on. And this would be definitely in terms of safety and understanding the students, why they're using it, why they want to use it, and how we can best accommodate the flow and the traction of the flyer itself. Thanks.
I think one additional thing is just SGA or the university in general could do a better job marketing all the different restaurants, shops, activities, anything going on downtown. That way students know what's happening and they it kind of sparks their interest and encourages them to go downtown.
Jake and Bridget?
This is really a wonderful question. Now, I'm personally a native of the city of Dayton. I live right here in downtown Dayton. And I think that it's very important that my fellow flyers escape the UD bubble. Now, campus is a very, very nice place. I absolutely love being on campus. But there's a lot of wonderful local businesses. A great example is the Oregon District, which has all kinds of restaurants and shops that have very unique type things. There's also cultural attractions. There's events they have at the park downtown, and there's a series of, there's the Neon Movie Theater, the Schuster Center for plays and performances. And if kids get out of the UD bubble, if they go out into the Dayton community, they can interact with people who might not be like where they are back home. They get to see a new perspective and really get to experience the unique diversity of the city of Dayton and get their money's worth from the University of Dayton.
Yeah, so definitely going off of what both Reese and Beardsley said, as well as Jake, why come to a university that's not from your hometown if you're not going to get the full experience and really immerse yourself into what Dayton is all about? We're not like most schools where we're kind of like a college city, but I think one thing that is helping us to encourage students to go down to Dayton is the hub that we're currently renovating. That will give students a chance to network with people from all over the city that will help with jobs, internships, things like that. But also just to get the feel of where you're going to be living for the next 4 years or however many you're already here for of your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Natalie and Annie?
So Annie and I would mostly just like to highlight on this that we are named the University of Dayton. Just simply put, we are named after the city, and it's very important for students to go and explore the city that their university that they love is named after. Whether that's utilizing the flyer to take it downtown, I know that there are some issues surrounding it right now in terms of safety and everything, but like Sage and Tommy said, there are ways that we can reform that and get around that. But just get groups of friends and just set out and explore, maybe set a Friday or a Saturday aside to say, hey, we're going to go and learn about the city of Dayton. Furthermore, the university and SGA as themselves can also maybe encourage other fraternities or sororities or other clubs and organizations to maybe try hosting a takeover or two in a restaurant that they wouldn't usually utilize that's downtown. Because right now they use a lot of the restaurants that are on Brown Street just because they are easily accessible. But once we get the flyer up and running the way that maybe it should be, or even right now in its present state, maybe just try having a takeover down in that area just to see how it works out. It might work really, really well, and it might let students explore that side that they didn't even really know existed. Thank you.
Yeah, going off what Natalie was saying, we really want to encourage the use of the flyer, and we really want to work with students to make it safer, because we have heard concerns about the safety of the flyer. And we also want to offer additional opportunities for students to really get involved with the city of Dayton, whether that be like Jake was saying, with like encouraging the use of the Oregon district, or we want to offer like different volunteering opportunities so University of Dayton students can really have an impact on the community and get more involved.
Here's the last question before closing statements. And this is for anyone that kind of just wants to answer it. How will you ensure that Nancy from Marycrest gets the love and respect that she deserves?
I'll take this one. Nancy is our reigning queen of the University of Dayton, and anyone who is lucky enough to live in Marycrest or eat from the dining hall has been graced with Nancy and her kindness. On a more serious note, I think that Nancy is a great example of Dayton and the spirit of the University of Dayton. She's caring. She cares about everyone that comes through that line. She knows your name. I swear she knows my birthday. I don't know how, but anyways, that's what Dayton should be about smiling, about being kind, about offering a hand, even when it's not expected, even when it's not necessary at times. Nancy is amazing. I wish more people were like her. I loved that question. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to answer this one. Like Sage was saying, Nancy is the perfect example of community. And if everybody acted a little bit more like Nancy on our campus, I think that we would have a much better sense of community that we were all talking about striving towards. With that being said, I think that I'd like to touch back on Annie and I's respect for administrators. And I think that we can ensure that she and as well as other administrators will be treated the way that they should be if we just continue to have that respectful conversation with them. Thank you.
I'd also like to answer that one real quick. Nancy is the UD community personified. Her friendly, welcoming demeanor just really makes everyone feel at home, makes everyone feel like we're all part of a family, which is what UD really is. So a big shout out to Nancy for helping make all students at the University of Dayton feel welcome and included.
I just want to, like, all of you guys did a great job to really show what Nancy is all about. I think one thing we could do, instead of making it Marycrest Dining Hall, like name it after Nancy. Like, she's been here for so long. Everyone loves her. Let's show her how much we appreciate her.
Thank you, Bridget. And now that ends all audience questions. So we will go to closing statements, and we will start with Sage and Tommy.
So thank you so much for all of the audience questions. It was great getting to know what you all are compassionate about and what you want to see from us. In this unbelievable world of uncertainty moving forward, leadership is an absolute must. My experiences with administration, my passion and love for the University of Dayton and its students, and also its traditions, are the reason why we are in this race to begin with, and why Tommy and I believe we can make a difference. We would be humbled to serve and lead as your next president and vice president. And again, we thank you for your time and consideration.
As Sage said, thank you so much for your time and consideration and this opportunity to speak to everyone. Don't forget the 3 T's: trust, transparency, and tradition.
Thank you, Sage and Tommy. Now, Jake and Bridget.
Well, I'd like to start by saying thank you to all y'all watching out there, and thank you to Spoons for hosting this. in these
You're
difficult
welcome.
times. And to conclude, I'd like to emphasize a couple of things. First, the three main platform issues of Bridget and I's campaign, which are accountability, inclusion, and safety. Bridget and I will fight tirelessly to make sure that all three of those things get accomplished as much as we possibly can next year. And I'd like to end by repeating our slogan, unity through community, because that is what the University of Dayton is all about. And Bridget and I want that for all of you so that we can come together in unity. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for listening and letting us know your thoughts of everything you want us to accomplish during our term if we were elected. Well, any of the three amazing tickets. I think we've all had amazing ideas and we're not afraid to work together. If you guys need anything at all, we are only a text, DM, or email away. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything at all or have any more questions you would like to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake and Bridget. And now finally, Natalie and Annie.
Yes, as everyone else said, thank you all so much for tuning in and taking time out of your very busy, very hectic schedules to learn a little bit more about your potential presidents and vice presidents for student government. Annie and I just feel so blessed to have this opportunity to represent the school in the place that we have come to know as our second home away from home in a way like this. Thank you all again. And if you have any questions about our platform of well-being, safety, or sustainability, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And that can be done through our emails or the UD SGA webpage or even our own personal accounts. Thank you so much. And we hope that you choose to fly first class with us.
I just want to thank everyone for their time and consideration. And I really want to stress that Natalie and mine's top priority is the overall well-being of students. We want to work with the university to provide the best possible experience for all students. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to the candidates for saying everything that they had to say. Elections will be held this coming up Monday through Wednesday, so make sure you vote. And as always, go Flyers.